Medellin is like the sex work capital damn near. So a large percentage of women that you meet here, if they're, I'm going to say, at 8 or above, they're probably doing some type of sex work. White men just tend to clean up in general in Latin America, especially here in Colombia and Medellin.
Hey, Jaime Woods, we here to travel and motivate. No curry, we just trying to keep our minds in a golden state. We answer to nobody but the Lord, we control our fate. Too many things to see just to sit in a hole and bake. We growing, ayy.
How is the dating market? How's the dating scene out there in Medellin right now in the year 2025?
Okay, so one of the things that a lot of guys need to understand about Medellin and Medellin specifically, while dating is so much different here than other parts of Colombia, and I usually highly recommend that if somebody is you're coming here and you want dating to be a little bit easier, especially brothers, because in general in Latin America, the women here tend to favor white men, white, Asian, not so much black men because we're not unique here. We're not, you know, I wouldn't say not foreign, but we're common, because there's so many Afro-Colombians here in Colombia. So, and what's pushed usually in mainstream media and movies is what's the leading character that's romanticized is usually white men. So white men just tend to clean up in general in Latin America, especially here in Colombia and Medellin. Now, one thing that a lot of guys have to understand with dating here in Medellin, Colombia, is that there used to be something here back in the day with Pablo Escobar. Everybody's heard of him, seen Narcos and everything else. There was the narco culture. And what that is basically, for the people who don't know, basically all the drug cartel guys used to make a lot of money here, and they used to spoil the women here. They were the ones that were tricking off on all the women. Why not? Because money was basically like they had money printers essentially, so they could buy whatever they want. They were the ones spending the money on the girls. And a really good friend of mine, she very educated girl I met through bachata, older, but she told me when she was younger, her mom is a psychiatrist and her dad is like a teaching professor. So very intelligent girl, speaks English and Spanish fluently. She told me when she was younger that, her friends, their parents would always tell them, like, from a young age, like, oh, you have to look pretty, like make yourself pretty so you can get a narco guy. So that always became like the thing was, understand that beauty is going to get you opportunities and it's going to get you a guy that has money that can potentially help take care of us or whatever. Her family was never that way. It was like, go get an education, get a job, typical thing. So once the narco culture faded out, it basically got replaced with gringo culture. So basically that's now what we are here in Medellin, at least from my experience, is now we're looked at as the ones who are coming in with all the money to basically trick off on all these girls. Obviously, not everyone's the same. Not everyone here is what they call interesada, which is a gold digger or a girl who's just interested in money. But that is what they've had here for decades, and maybe even longer than that, millennia. So that has just been the thing here for the longest in Medellin, and I would say maybe somewhat of Pereira as well, but not as bad as it is here, because in Pereira, there's still Paisa in Pereira. It's not just here in Medellin.
A lot of the baddest girls, a lot of the best looking girls in these countries are going to be P for P girls for the most part. What they do is they understand their value. They understand how pretty they are. The economy sucks. So they're going to revert to P for P to make ends meet and to make.
The dating scene is, yes, you have a lot of women that are looking for a guy who will take care of them, that maybe just only wants money, but it really just depends on the guy, in my opinion. So it depends on what you will accept and what you won't accept. For example, like if you come out here with boundaries and you're like, a girl is like, oh, well, buy me a phone or whatever. And you like, nah, I barely know you, whatever. Yeah, they'll go their way or whatever, but you kind of gradually learn how to filter out who's really interested, who's not, where to look, where to find them. Like for me, one of my key things is Instagram. I love trying to, meet girls through Instagram because, you know, it basically tells the whole story of how they're going.
It's almost like a resume, like, yeah.
Essentially. So, but dating overall, in my experience as a, you know, I would say decent looking black guy in his 40s, I would say there's some dimes I'm going to throw out here. So hopefully, you know, your audience is listening. So one of the things, if you want women here in Medellin to take you seriously, is you got to get something what I call anchors. And anchors are things that show that you're going to be here for a while. You're not just here for a weekend. You're not just here for a week or 30 days, like some of the, you know, probably most of the digital nomads they're going to meet. One of those things can be get a Colombian cell phone. You can go buy a cheap, or if you have an extra spare phone that's unlocked, go to 𝐃𝐨𝐽, go to Claro, go to any one of them. Get you a Colombian cell phone. Get a Colombian number. So this way, when you meet girls, whatever, you can text them through that Colombian number, and it shows like, hey, I'm serious. I'm actually, you know, living here or whatever. The other thing is, you know, like, for example, it's other things that are going to show that you know, that you're staying here. One could be have a visa, you know, show that you're here for a while. I have a Colombian cédula. I mean, also have my driver's license, but it's little things, you know, these little things add up, which gives them more trust and confidence. Okay, yeah, this guy's going to be here for a while. And it also helps you kind of network with more people here, that you're not just seen as like, okay, the normal guy who's just here for a month and then you're out. But to get back to dating, it can have its challenges going into the cultural differences. One of the huge things for me that I still struggle with, and you think you'll get used to it, is the flaking. Women here are extremely flaky. And the reason why is just because in Colombian culture, they don't like to tell, or they don't like saying no, period. And this is for girls, for guys. Sometimes, like, let's say I can invite you out, you're a friend of mine, you're Colombian, and I'm saying, hey, we're going to go to this concert. Let's go. It's going to be fun. They may feel pressured and say yes in the moment, but may not be able to afford it. So the day of the, you know, when it's getting close to go to the concert, they're going to be like, something came up, my mom or whatever, just because they don't, you know, want to say no. So it's just something that's embedded in the culture here. I think what I've found to kind of alleviate the flaking is with women here is just talk to them longer. You know, don't be in such a rush to get them out on a date. Like, you know, let's say you meet them and then usually a day or two later, you're like, yeah, let's go out, you know, but it could be like, add them on Instagram, you know, let them get familiar with you with seeing your stories and your posts and your life. And then also, you know, have regular conversations. A friend of mine, he'll talk to a girl for almost 2 weeks before he finally invite them out. Well, you know,
you also got to do that too. Not to cut you off, but I feel like in Colombia specifically, it's not a bad idea to take your time with it because, you know, the scopolamine and all that. You kind of want to vet them and kind of get to see what type of girl you're dealing with before you even start hanging around them, and especially inviting them over.
Of course. Getting into that, the inviting over, as you said, one of the key things I usually recommend is you stay somewhere that has 24-hour security. What I usually like to do, or at least when I first got here, I would get at least a 2-bedroom, minimum 2-bedroom. And what you do is anything valuable that you have, you're going to lock that in that second bedroom. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your key and you're going to go down to your portero, to the security guards, and you're going to leave that key with the security guards. And you're going to tell them that I'm not going to pick this key back up until my guest leaves. Because when you're under the influence of scopolamine, whatever they tell you to do, you're going to do. So if you hide it in your house, they're going to say, where's the key to this door? You're going to go find the key and unlock it or whatever. So by you giving it to the security guards, then, you know, there might be some people out there saying, well, why go to Colombia if you have to deal with this or whatever? But, you know, for the people that want to live out here, you understand how this is, you take the good with the bad. But if you're not meeting women through Tinder and online dating apps and stuff like that, this isn't something you usually have to worry about. But for the guys that will, because there's always going to be someone that does. So hopefully one of them sees this video. You know, you leave your key with the security guard, and that way, if something does happen, they can't get into that room that has all your shit in it. And if they do, they're going to have to take you physically to the security, and the security should see like that you're not your normal self, and hopefully that'll save you or save, you know, your shit. But anyways, getting back to the other parts of dating, we're just talking about the whole flaking thing and kind of how to avoid that. There are a lot of good women here in Colombia, and it really it sucks that the scopolamine thing takes over the majority of the media, and how Colombian women are, and women here in Medellin are just purely out for money. And I'm going to say this as respectfully as I can, but there really isn't anywhere in the world that you're going to go today where you're not going to find a girl who's monetized, whether it's on the small end where she's just hoeing herself for vacations, which a lot of women do here, or if it's on the high end where she's actually walking the streets, doing OnlyFans or some type of webcam. And here, Medellin is like the sex work capital damn near. So a large percentage of women that you meet here, if they're, I'm going to say at 8 or above, they're probably doing some type of sex work. Whether it's OnlyFans, whether it's webcam, they may be somewhat in the streets, but more girls prefer to go the digital route because it's more safe and they just don't have to be out in the streets. Or if it's, you know, they got sugar daddies or whatever it is, because obviously simp culture has made its way to Colombia. And I've met some beautiful women here who, you know, have got guys sending them money that have never met them before, which is the stupidest thing. But obviously this is the type of stuff that messes up the culture. But and this may be controversial, but I'm going to say your best thing is going to be when you come here to Colombia, find you a girl who's a 6 or a 7, maybe a 7.5. Those are going to be the best ones. You trying to go for the 9s and 10s. Trust me, it's a reason why you meet them and they're single. They're not single for a reason. Most of the time, they're usually not single. They're always entertaining some guy or some guys